Halloween can be such a fun time for the entire family, including your pets, your dogs, and your cats. But there are several hazards, several precautions that you should take to make sure that everyone is safe while they're enjoying this fun holiday.
And those are things that range from food and decorations to costumes and just reducing the chances of your pet escaping. And we're going to go through all of them. Let's start with food.
Probably the most common thing on Halloween is candy. And one of the things that comes with candy is sugar and chocolate. And neither of those things are very good for either your dogs or your cats.
And specifically, xylitol is really bad. More so for dogs than cats, but it's still not a good thing. The goal is to keep that up, right? Don't let your pets get into the chocolate, get into the sugars, get into anything with xylitol. But I would definitely watch that one because it's amazing how they can find wrappers. And that's probably a little bit more of a dog thing, like finding chocolate and eating it, than it is a cat thing, but it can affect both of them. So keep it up and keep it away.
Right. And if you do have a cat that's more interested in your candy or your children's candy, then you might want to even put that in a cabinet or put that away because cats may have a tendency to jump up somewhere. Or if you have like a Great Dane that can just put its head on top of a table or countertop, that's definitely not a safe place for something like that. I will also add that if your pet does, whether it's your dog or your cat, does consume any kind of chocolate, save that wrapper because it'll help you determine how much danger they're potentially in based on how much chocolate, whether it's milk chocolate, dark chocolate, or what have you, is in what they ate. So keep that, and then if you need to go to the vet, you have that for reference to tell them.
And sugar is also not good. So just remember that just because it's not chocolate, just any kind of candy, maybe not as bad as chocolate, but it's still not great on their tummies. And I know Jessica might have a personal experience from that.
Yes, I do. One of my dogs, Luna, has, let's just say she ate, half a bag of powdered sugar. It was not a fun day after, for sure. So don't
Yeah.
let your dogs get into a bag of sugar or a bucket of candy that also contains a ton of sugar. Luna does not recommend it.
Neither does Jessica. Also, spices, things that are common now in Halloween time, even just fallish time, nutmeg, pumpkin spice, those kinds of things. Be careful of those. They tend to go together, and we have a lot of pumpkin things right now. And so you just want to make sure your pets aren't getting into any even baked goods that might have those kinds of spices in them.
Yep, nutmeg is definitely the spice to be aware of, and it is in pumpkin spice mixtures. You can enjoy your pumpkin spice muffin, but don't let your dog or your cat enjoy it. That's for sure.
Bottom line, be aware of where all the food and candy is and try your best to keep it away from your pet.
And now let's talk about decoration. If you're like me, you have tons of Halloween decorations all over your house, all over your yard. That's all fun and great, but you also want to consider what you're actually putting there and how that can impact your pets and their daily lives.
We bring out special things in our house just for like Halloween. Things like candles. If you're going to light candles, be aware of where they are, not just for your pets being able to get into them, especially cats that can jump up and onto things. Just because you put it up doesn't mean it's safe or that your pet is safe. But also lights in general. Know if they're LED, which is a little bit safer, doesn't burn as much energy or burn as hot. But like old school lights, if you still have any, be careful because they can get really hot. So whether that means you're keeping it away from a curtain, but also keeping it away from your pet because that can burn them, they get so hot, or it could get on their costume and maybe burn the costume. There's a lot of concern around really old lights. So check your lights. Make sure you know if they're LED or if you need to be extra special careful with them.
One of the things I associate with Halloween is putting a candle in a jack-o'-lantern. But now to make things a little bit safer, I'm looking to get that LED fake candle that I can even potentially turn on with a remote so I can have it lit every night. Another thing that you may have is those creepy cloths, something that you may hang up to make it look a little bit spookier. And that's great, but you just want to keep in mind that your dog or your cat could potentially get caught in some of this extra fabric. So if you have creepy cloths around your house, outside, just keep that in mind so that your pets don't get tangled up in that particular web.
And then there is some of us who like to have audio or animatronics, things that move. Just be aware of how those might spook your pets, because one of the things we want with Halloween pet safety is making sure that like you're not scaring your animals, your dog or your cat, and making them run. Whether that's run and hide or run like out the front door, which we'll get to on how to keep that from happening. But if it's new and it's not around a lot, it just might be something that all of a sudden, even just like we have a big Grim Reaper, and one of our dogs does not like it. And so we keep it outside so he doesn't have to see it a lot. But, even that can spook them. So you just want to have those extra things that you're putting out in mind of how they're going to affect your pet.
Definitely keep in mind that it's still their home too. And while you may understand and enjoy these Grim Reapers and ghosts and goblins that are out front or in your house, they don't understand why they're all of a sudden there. So keep that in mind. And then also when it comes to decorating, plants, seasonal plants are a big thing. Mums are massive this time of year, but they are actually poisonous to both dogs and cats. Mm-hmm. So my rule of thumb is that I get a couple mums each year because I think they're beautiful, but I keep them outside. I keep them on my front porch, and so my dogs are never around them when maybe I'm not supervising them and they might be at risk for munching on them to avoid any potential poison issues.
Yep. And the other thing about decor and decorations is just thinking about where you're putting it. Say, for instance, you bring home a plant and you put it up on the perfect place on some cabinet, but it's in a place where your cat can knock it over. That can, just be a hazard for them, for you, for your floor. So just have that extra thought as you're decorating for Halloween or any holiday, really, and just make sure you're putting things in places that feel secure, that it feels like it's not going to impede on your pet in one way or another, so that everybody can just be a little bit more safe.
Yes. And now we're on to costumes. So I hope you have a fun costume picked out for yourself for this year and for your pets, whether it's your dog or your cat, assuming that they cooperate and they like it and it doesn't cause any problems for them. But that's exactly what we're going to talk about, is planning ahead. So if you do have that costume, try it on today. Try it on now. Make sure that it fits your pet. Make sure that they are comfortable in it, and that it doesn't cause any issues or potentially cause any pain for them.
Yeah, because some of them, have like strings that go underneath, and you just want to make sure you're not like cutting into their skin at all. You want to make sure they can move, that they're okay with it. As much as we love doing it, sometimes it's just for the picture, and your pet doesn't need to stay in the costume because they don't like it. I know I have a little one who's like, get me out of this thing. So I just don't really put him in much. He gets a little bow tie.
Yes, and that's a great alternative, is a bow tie or a bandana. It still keeps them festive and, on theme, but it doesn't necessarily impact their ability to kind of do their thing and move around.
Yeah, because there's some costumes out there that add a lot of like girth or height or different things that can mean they're no longer really understanding their surroundings. And so they're knocking things over. They're getting into things. They're maybe getting tangled up in extra fabric or something you have hanging around. So just thinking about all the pieces of what is going to be your decorations, the costumes, and how they're going to all interact will help prevent any hazards from happening.
Right. And I keep thinking of that dog that dressed up as a spider that one year, then the video went viral. And I could only imagine how weird he or she, I actually don't know if the dog was male or female, but how he or she felt in that spider costume, because that was probably 2 or 3 times normal body size, wandering around with that. It was hilarious for us, but who knows how they felt.
Yes. So just be cognizant of the decisions you're making on costumes for your pets and how they'll affect both your pet and your surrounding. Which brings us actually to the idea of reducing chances of them escaping and keeping them physically safe and contained. On a day like Halloween, trick-or-treaters are coming to the door, or maybe just to your yard, or however you're choosing to participate in this particular year. But there is that opportunity for strangers, right? There are people who, one, are in costume, so that's different. They don't just look like normal people, but they're also mostly not people your pets are familiar with. So that can create some anxiety or guarding or anything like that. You don't want to spook them. So if you are somebody who is going to be answering your door, I always put gates up to kind of create a place where I can open and close my door without my dogs being able to get all the way to it. And I just prep that ahead of time, and it keeps them back. And that's just one of my security things. But I also always make sure they're wearing their collars, they've got their tags, just in case.
And if your house isn't set up so that you can put a gate, you may have to take the tactic of actually setting up a room and having your dog or your cat sit in that room while the trick-or-treating is going on, because you definitely don't want the risk of when the doors are opening so often for someone to just, make a run for it and go out that door, because you don't know what's going to spook them or what's going to cause them to want to run out that door. So that's another alternative, is you could pick one of the bedrooms, if you can close off, your living room, and set up a space for them that is just for them. Make sure that there's water, make sure there's somewhere comfy for them to lay, whether it's your couch, your bed, or a dog or cat bed. And then you could also even consider putting on some background noise. You could play with, turning on the TV or the radio, something that would definitely won't spook them. So I wouldn't suggest, your creepy Halloween music, even though that's on theme, but something that'll drown out that extra noise of all the children on the street or the doorbell ringing, something that'll distract them and help them feel more like it's a normal day.
And that's kind of the key. For us, Halloween is fun and, there's excitement and stuff, but pets like routine. So they want it to feel like a normal day every day. And this is a day that all of a sudden there's strange people, there's strange sounds, there's decorations, there's a lot going on. And so just keeping that in mind from your dog or cat's perspective of like, this day for us is exciting, for them is a little much. It's important to know your pet, know how they might react to things not being normal, and just prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you do have a pet who does love people, you may choose to have your dog or even your cat out with you while you're handing out candy. And if that's the case, just make sure that you have, like Chloe said, a collar, an ID, potentially, a harness, and then a secure leash somewhere that, you know that they're not going to be able to just bolt and run off, that they're going to be secure, because again, you don't know what ghoul or goblin's going to creep them out on this Halloween.
And so with all of that, we hope you learned a few tips about food, about decorations, about costumes, about keeping your pets secure so that you're reducing the risk of them escaping for this Halloween. We would love to hear what else you do. Leave us a comment below and tell us, what are the tips that you have to offer? And be sure to subscribe so that every time we publish a new video, we end up in your inbox.